On protests against the incarceration of retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye, and some of the protesters were arrested, including Deputy Kampala Mayor Doreen Nyanjura and Ingrid Turinawe. Now, yesterday, the two and others were released on bail, so now they're free. They'll be reporting to police as stipulated by the court until their case is heard. Well, good morning once again. And today, in this new space, I am seated right next to Robert Chirabo Nyonyitono, and on the far left is Julie F. Nantaba Musisi. Together, we will launch into this day. So come on board and be with us today. Good morning, Robert.
Good morning to you. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm great. How are you? I'm
very fine. Just looking at what transpired yesterday, and something has been on my mind. Why would a Ugandan wake up one day, apply for a passport, go for the interview process? Sometimes it's even hectic, but then end up not collecting their passport. Now, Ministry of Internal Affairs yesterday destroyed 158,000 passport booklets, but that is the old version. Now, they have had these passports for quite some time, and according to the spokesperson of the ministry, Simon Monde, says despite several announcements, people have not been coming to collect the passports. Now, the passports destroyed are worth 39.5 billion Uganda shillings. Wow. That is really a big amount of money, because it means people paid for these passports. And we know how much a passport costs, those that go through the back door and those that do things legally. Now also, the ministry says they are currently stuck with 12,580 books now. Not the old version, but the new, and they are waiting for people to come and collect. However, they're also stuck with 60,000 passports, and these were returned by labor export companies. Remember, labor export companies take people out for greener pastures, but there was a time when, or as we speak today, many of these were going to work as domestic workers, but it seems this business is not faring very well in our country as of late. So some of these companies seemingly pulled out, and they did not take the girls, so the passports, they never even bothered to collect them. So the ministry has kept on announcing, come and pick your passports, but unfortunately, people are not picking their passports. So we do not want these passports destroyed. Wherever you are, please come and pick your passport. We don't want the backlog at the Ministry of Internal Affairs. Just go to the Ministry of Internal Affairs, ask for the Immigration Department or the Passports Office, and you'll be getting your passport. So that is the story that really took my attention yesterday. Why wouldn't you pick your passport?
Well, indeed, a question there that needs pondering. But also, it's important to note that if you apply for a passport and you don't pick it, it's you that is making a loss. At least government made the money, because the money was paid to the government.
Definitely, they made the money, 39.5 billion Uganda shillings. That's a lot of money they made. And when they destroy these passports, because still they're not making a loss, because the revenue, the taxation process, everything was done.
Yeah. Now, Julie, good morning.
Good morning, lovely morning to you, and thanking God for cooler weather. Seeing as February was quite, not just quite, but extremely hot. So I think we bless God for the cooler weather, but also thanking you, our dear viewer, for choosing to be inspired here on Good Morning Uganda today. And Robert has expressed the issue of passports. I mean, I don't know why a Ugandan would pay money and not pick a passport. I believe there's a vital reason, a crucial reason, a serious reason as to why they fail to pick it. Maybe death, maybe prison, different reasons. I understand.
The invitation was turned down. Someone promises you a tour to Zanzibar, and then you wake up and it says,
Despite that, I believe that you should pick your passport and keep your passport, because at the end of the day, this book lasts 10 years and you don't know what's going to happen in 10 years. In 10 years, you could get other travel opportunities. So I believe, like Julie's put it, there is a lot for us to look into why people do not pick the passports when they're supposed to.
That is so true. But also, Olive did talk about the Kawempe North by by-election, and President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni is set to join the NRM campaign today, seeing as it's the last day of campaigning. Looking forward to what it will look like and how the day will end with his presence in that direction of Kampala. Good morning, Uganda.
I can tell you how it's going to be, because when the Fountain of Honor is passing within town, just know that our roads are going to be closed for quite some time.
Plan your journey.
Yes, plan your journey. Yes.
Now is the party chairperson. He's not the president. He's going there as the party chairperson.
Does the convoy does the convoy state the difference?
No.
No.
That's what I'm saying. Potato.
Potato.
For their candidate.
Well, interesting. Now, we are going to get into the news, but before we do that, after weeks of us waiting on the decision by the United States regarding the funds at the U.S. aid, the U.S. Secretary of State, that is Mark Rubio, announced that 83% of the programs at the U.S. aid have been cancelled. This means around 5,200 contracts have been cancelled, and the remaining is about 17%. So we are yet to know which programs they are maintaining, and as a country, Uganda, where do we stand? Because for us, the biggest concern is the response to HIV AIDS. So we will wait and see where this leaves us as a country, because that has been of the most concern to us. But that being said, let's get into our local news.
And we will begin with the Kawempe North by-election, where the Kawempe North by-election campaign has gained momentum, with top-ranking officials from the ruling National Resistance Movement, NRM party, rallying support for their candidate, Hajat Farida Nambi, the Vice Chairperson of NRM, Haji Moses Chigongo, the Prime Minister, Robin Anabanja, Amos Sinzei, a brother to President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, and the Minister for Kampala, Hajat Misa Kabanda, all were in Kawempe actively engaging with the electorate to bolster Nambi's campaign. The National Resistance Movement Vice Chairperson, Haji Moses Chigongo, the Prime Minister, Robin Anabanja, among so many leaders in the NRM, were in Kawempe yesterday. Speaking at Serena Gardens in Kawempe, Hachigongo assured residents that the election of Nambi would resolve many of their pressing issues affecting the constituency. He emphasized the importance of electing representatives affiliated to the ruling party for enhanced service delivery. Prime Minister Robin Anabanja also addressed the rally and encouraged residents to focus on development to uplift the community. Nabanja warned residents against self-seeking politicians and focus on leaders who prioritize development and the well-being of Kawempe residents. Cedric Nzeri also participated in the mobilization efforts, further strengthening the NRM's position in the area. Hajat Farida Nambi, the NRM flag bearer, urged the electorate to place their trust in her leadership, promising effective service delivery and commitment to addressing local challenges. Now to the National Unity Platform camp, which intensified its campaign efforts for the upcoming Kawempe North by-elections scheduled for the 13th of this very month. In addition to NUP's backing, the People's Front for Transition, PFF, and the Alliance for National Transformation, ANT, have joined efforts to support Nalukola's candidacy. The coalition underscores a collective effort to consolidate opposition support in the constituency. The rally attracted hundreds of residents from Chebando and border Kawempe North area. Attendees were entertained by artists such as King Saha and Rain, who performed in support of Nalukola's campaign. Various members of parliament also addressed crowds, urging residents to vote for Nalukola and assuring them of his dedication to serving the community effectively. Council Luyimbazi Nalukola took the opportunity to encourage his supporters to turn out in large numbers on Thursday, March 13th, to cast their vote. The leader of the opposition in parliament, Joe Senyonyi, and NUP Vice President Buganda Muwanga Chivumbi also addressed the gathering. They emphasized the critical need for voters not only to participate in the election, but also to remain vigilant in safeguarding their votes throughout the electoral process. As the election date approaches, candidates are employing various campaign strategies, including door-to-door engagement, to reach out to voters. The Uganda police have deployed senior officers to command operations during the Kawempe North constituency by-elections happening on Thursday this week. The force intends to ensure the elections are free and fair and peaceful, says Uganda Police spokesperson, Assistant Commissioner of Police, Rusoke Gitumwa. As the date for Kawempe North constituency grows closer, since the beginning of the campaigns in Kawempe, security has been accused of manhandling supporters of the National Unity Platform. The criticism has prompted police to change strategy. Meanwhile, the security is yet to release a report on what transpired at the NUP headquarters, where an officer is accused of using excessive force on NUP supporters. Furthermore, security has launched investigations into the alleged abduction of Charles Bukenya, known as Muvawara, a NUP supporter. Police is calling for public calmness ahead of the Kawempe North by-election scheduled for Thursday. Security has urged the public to collaborate with it and ensure they minimize any cause of ugly or unnecessary confrontation. And finally, on the local scene, the Ministry of Internal Affairs has destroyed 158,000 old-version passport booklets. Simon Monday, the ministry spokesperson, says the passports were not collected for many years despite constant announcements. The destruction of 158,000 passports by the Ministry of Internal Affairs follows a transition from the old version of passport booklets to electronic passports. The ministry first rendered these passports invalid upon failure by the applicants to collect them. That they destroyed the passports are worth of 39.5 billion shillings. According to the ministry, another bunch of uncollected electronic passports totaling to 12,580 are in the backlog at the ministry. In addition to the backlog, the Ministry of Internal Affairs also has at least 60,000 passports that were returned by labor export companies. On several occasions, the Ministry of Internal Affairs has come out to call the public to pick their passports with the intention of minimizing backlog. Now, with that, we come to the end of our local stories.
Well, thank you, Robert. Now we get into our international news, where Ukraine's Zelensky has arrived in Saudi Arabia for peace talks. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has arrived in Saudi Arabia to visit the kingdom's crown prince and prime minister ahead of meetings with the United States diplomats focused on a bilateral minerals deal and ending Ukraine's war with Russia. Saudi State Television reported Zelensky's arrival in Jeddah, a port city on the Red Sea, where the Ukraine-US summit will be held on Tuesday. He will meet Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman on Monday before Ukrainian officials, including Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha and Defense Minister Rustem Umerov, sit down with the Americans on Tuesday. Ukraine has been seeking peace since the very first second of the war, and we have always said that the only reason that the war is continuing is because of Russia, Zelensky wrote on social media ahead of his trip. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio arrived in Jeddah shortly after Zelensky. The top U.S. diplomat is leading a delegation that also includes Mike Waltz, U.S. President Donald Trump's national security advisor. Rubio has said it is important to clearly establish Ukraine's intentions to reach a point where peace with Russia is possible. And moving on, share markets in Asia have fallen after a sell-off in the U.S. was triggered by President Donald Trump not ruling out the suggestion that his tariffs could trigger a recession in the world's biggest economy. It followed Trump's comment that the U.S. economy was in a period of transition when asked about concerns of a potential recession. The president has not commented directly on the economy since making those remarks, but his top officials and advisors investors have sought to calm investor fears. The previous notion of Trump being a stock market president is being re-evaluated, said Charu Chanana, an investment strategist at the investment bank Saxo, and as he said to the BBC. Speaking to Fox News in an interview broadcast on Sunday but recorded on Thursday, Trump appeared to acknowledge the concerns. "I hate to predict things like that," he said. "There is a period of transition because what we are doing is very big. We are bringing wealth back to America. That's a big thing." In early trade on Tuesday, Japan's Nikkei 225 was down 2.3%, South Korea's Kospi was 2% lower, and Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index was off by 1.5%. On Monday in New York, the S&P 500, which tracks the biggest American companies, ended the trading day 2.7% lower, while the Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped 2%. The tech-heavy Nasdaq was hit particularly hard, sinking 4%. And lastly, back here in East Africa, President's charge donation sparks Kenyan clashes. Police in Kenya have fired tear gas to disperse protesters who tried to occupy a church that was recently given a substantial donation by President William Ruto. The gift to the Jesus Winner Ministry in Roysambu suburb of Nairobi of 20 million shillings, which is approximately $155,000 US, drew criticism from some young Kenyans struggling with the high cost of living. Ruto has defended his donation and has offered a similar gift to another church in Eldoret. Last year, both Kenya's Catholic and Anglican leaders rejected donations, arguing that there was a need to protect the church from being used for political purposes. At least 38 people were arrested during the clashes before being released without charge. The clashes saw protesters try to get into the church and light fires and use rocks to block nearby roads. But the church service went ahead with tight security for worshippers, local media reported. Bishop Edward Mwai said that unnamed people had mobilized thugs to disrupt the church service, this according to reports by the Star websites. Ruto, an evangelical Christian, defended the donation, saying it was an attempt to address the country's moral decay. Kenya must know God so that we shame the people who are telling us that we cannot associate with the church, the Nation site quoted him as saying at another church in Eldoret. Kenyans have been angered by a series of tax raises introduced since Ruto was elected in 2022. Well, with that, we come to the end of our international news. Interesting news coming in from Kenya. I don't know what the correlation is between money and knowing God.
Of course, you see, it is the money that you use to serve for ministry. You can't, if you don't have money, there's nothing you can do.
Oh, well. If you put it that way. Anyway, Julie, what do you have for us in the newspapers?
Now imagine Aunt Kaviri or Bob the Builder, Bob Omuzimbi, you having to have a work permit to operate, to build or to plait hair in Uganda. Hairdressers and builders must have permits. This is in the new vision, and a 6 million fine for artisans who operate without licenses. That story is on page 5 of the new vision. But looking at the picture there, who is behind Marira Forest destruction? That is in the new vision, but also 8,400 jobs in police and prisons. You can see more of that on page 7 of the new vision. And Mubaje dragged to court over new term bid. Still in the new vision on page 14. And teens self-diagnosing on TikTok. Still in the teen vision inside the new vision. And one woman's effort at justice for LRA victims. Page 23 to 24 of the new vision. And finally, Kawempe contestants in last minute vote hunt. And all of that, page 6 to 7 of the New Vision. But moving on to what is in today's dailies. Daily Monitor: priest killed URA official over lava. Wow. The murder of the director of public prosecutions has told the Entebbe Chief Magistrate's Court that a Catholic priest who is accused of stabbing dead a Uganda Revenue Authority official bought a knife from a supermarket in Chireka, Wakiso district, which he used to commit the crime. Now, more of that story is on page 4 of the Daily Monitor. But also there in a picture of the day, Besigye supporters released after 20 days. And their names are listed there, but also still in the New Vision. NMG Uganda lights up mood at New Planet. And more stories there. Police tight-lipped on probe into death of Vipers footballer Lawal. That story is on page 5 of the Daily Monitor. But also still on the Daily Monitor, failure to provide food could land family heads in a jail. That story is on page 7 of the Daily Monitor. There are also tender opportunities that you cannot afford to miss out on, from Bank of Uganda, Total, Grow Project, UNDP, Energy and Mineral Development, UNICEF, Worldwide Fund for Nature and World Vision, as well as GIZ, and many more. And also in Prosper, how Kamunyu made it in real estate, in the real estate sector. Page 22 to 23 of the Daily Monitor. But let's have a look at what is in the Citizen. Why many bus firms now opt for night operations, that is in the Citizen. Bus operators in Tanzania are increasingly focusing on night operations as they seek to capitalize on the economic advantages of operating overnight services. Now, more of that story is on page 2 of the Citizen. And still on the Citizen, fresh push to provide 1.2 million poor households with health coverage. Still on the Citizen. And government defends plan to buy electricity from Ethiopia. And according to Energy Permanent Secretary, the decision will benefit the country by reducing electricity costs, since some local sources generate power at higher prices than the tariff agreed upon with Ethiopia. More of that story on page 2 of the Citizen. And Sarungi children mourn him from abroad. That story is on page 3 of the Citizen. And finally, Tanzania set to build East Africa's biggest conference center. But moving on to the Daily Nation, civil servants reject the Social Health Authority deal. Civil servants have warned of a strike beginning March 18th if the government fails to address their grievances on the new medical scheme run by the Social Health Authority, saying they are being forced to fundraise to meet their medical needs because the state-run scheme is not working. That is on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation. And there's a unity test. Raila men skip Ruto tour of Nairobi. And there's also alcohol, drugs, and friendly fire. Interesting story there. That is on page 10 of the Daily Monitor. But also teachers dismissal by TSC for flirting with girl on Instagram upheld. A tutor also sexually abused the learner in an office inside the school's computer laboratory. And that is on page 2 of the Daily Nation. Finally, how financial deprivation neglect brought down TUK. And lastly, as well, page 12 of the New Vision, ranchers 17 billion shillings windfall after winning land battle. And that's what the press looks like on this 11th day of March 2025.
Well, thank you, Julie. Interesting stories in the dailies. Now, if you want the details regarding any of these stories, all you have to do is go to your nearby stall or supermarket and get yourself one of the papers, if not all, if you're an avid reader. Now, today, let me inspire you a bit. And the inspiration is if you either have a degree that opens doors for you, or you come from a family that has a name that opens doors for you. But if you don't have either, then focus on creating a name for yourself that opens doors for you. What this means is that you have the equipment, the knowledge and resources to back your name, so that when people associate with you, they can talk about your values, your character, and your knowledge, and of course, your steadfastness. So today, go out there and make a name for yourself. Now, the song of the day, the inspiration song of the day is Dream It Possible. So as you make the name, dream it possible. Enjoy. I can tell you how it's going to be, because when the Fountain of Honor is passing within town, just know that our roads are going to be closed for quite some time.
Plan your journey.
Yes, plan your journey. Yes.
Now is the party chairperson. He's not the president. He's going there as the party chairperson.
Of NRM,
but not
does the convoy broad state the difference?
No.
No.
That's what I'm saying. Potato.
For their candidate.
Well, interesting. Now, we are going to get into the news, but before we do that, after weeks of us waiting on the decision by the United States regarding the funds at the U.S. aid, the U.S. Secretary of State, that is Mark Rubio, announced that 83% of the programs at the U.S. aid have been cancelled. This means around 5,200 contracts have been cancelled, and the remaining is about 17%. So we are yet to know which programs they are maintaining, and as a country, Uganda, where do we stand? Because for us, the biggest concern is the response to HIV AIDS. So we will wait and see where this leaves us as a country, because that has been of the most concern to us. But that being said, let's get into our local news.
And we will begin with the Kawempe North by-election, where the Kawempe North by-election campaign has gained momentum, with top-ranking officials from the ruling National Resistance Movement, NRM party, rallying support for their candidate, Hajat Farida Nambi, the Vice Chairperson of NRM, Haji Moses Chigongo, the Prime Minister, Robin Anabanja, Amos Sinzei, a brother to President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, and the Minister for Kampala, Hajat Misa Kabanda, all were in Kawempe actively engaging with the electorate to bolster Nambi's campaign. The National Resistance Movement Vice Chairperson, Haji Moses Chigongo, the Prime Minister, Robin Anabanja, among so many leaders in the NRM, were in Kawempe yesterday. Speaking at Serena Gardens in Kawempe, Haji Chigongo assured residents that the election of Nambi would resolve many of their pressing issues affecting the constituency. He emphasized the importance of electing representatives affiliated to the ruling party for enhanced service delivery. Prime Minister Robin Anabanja also addressed the rally and encouraged residents to focus on development to uplift the community. Nabanja warned residents against self-seeking politicians and focus on leaders who prioritize development and the well-being of Kawempe residents. Cedric Nzeri also participated in the mobilization efforts, further strengthening the NRM's position in the area. Hajat Farida Nambi, the NRM flag bearer, urged the electorate to place their trust in her leadership, promising effective service delivery and commitment to addressing local challenges. Now to the National Unity Platform camp, which intensified its campaign efforts for the upcoming Kawempe North by-election scheduled for the 13th of this very month. In addition to NUP's backing, the People's Front for Transition, PFF, and the Alliance for National Transformation, ANT, have joined efforts to support Nalukola's candidacy. The coalition underscores a collective effort to consolidate opposition support in the constituency. The rally attracted hundreds of residents from Chebando and border Kawempe North area. Attendees were entertained by artists such as King Saha and Rain, who performed in support of Nalukola's campaign. Various members of parliament also addressed crowds, urging residents to vote for Nalukola and assuring them of his dedication to serving the community effectively. Council Luyimbazi Nalukola took the opportunity to encourage his supporters to turn out in large numbers on Thursday, March 13th, to cast their vote. The leader of the opposition in Parliament, Joe Senyonyi, and NUP Vice President Buganda Muwanga Chivumbi also addressed the gathering. They emphasized the critical need for voters not only to participate in the election, but also to remain vigilant in safeguarding their votes throughout the electoral process.
Together, we're unstoppable.
Juko.
Yo.
Check the shopping, man. What's your secret?
Haven't you heard of the Parish development model PDM?
Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk.
No, Sebatia. It is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a poultry project, and now things are moving.
Juko. I thought I was one of your friends.
You are.
But you left me behind.
I didn't leave you in poverty. What you do, just visit your LC2 chairperson and your parish chief and start the process of economic transformation. Just like that. The Parish development model is an initiative from the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform all lives of Ugandans for the better. PDM, my parish, my development, my life.
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, thank you for being a part of the program. This is Good Morning Uganda, and my name is Olive Monica Najuma. Now, yesterday there was a heavy gunfire in Chibiri village, Makinde, in Kampala, capital city, as police evicted people from a wetland claimed by the National Environment Management Authority. Now, the residents accused NEMA of rushing the process despite a pending court case. However, NEMA insists that the residents were warned multiple times against continuous encroachment, but to no avail. Now, that's the conversation we are heading into, and would like for you to be a part of this conversation through WhatsApp number 0709-602-592. To have this conversation with Julie F. Nantaba Musisi and Chirabo Robert Nyonyintono. Starting off with you, Julie. First of all, help us understand, because I think this is where NEMA and Ugandans do not see eye to eye. What is the relevance of wetland protection? Why is it important? And why must Ugandans not dwell in wetlands?
Oh, well, thank you, Olive. And you asked me a question that reminds me of my SST notes and SST education in primary school. But just a quick look at the importance of wetlands. I mean, wetlands play a vital role in regulating the control of floods. In other words, they control the flow of water body channels. That means they guard. They are more like guards to control water bodies from surpassing where they're supposed to stop, especially in case of heavy rains. But also they are home for wildlife, which is very important, a very important part of the ecosystem. But also wetlands provide a fresh water supply. In other words, they are able to always sieve. They are sieving out pollutants to enable fresh waters that we end up receiving in most water bodies, which end up as the water that we use in our homes, but also for some communities that stay near lake water bodies that use this water directly. So those are a few importances of wetlands that we have, and we've seen that encroaching on wetlands, houses or facilities that have been put up in wetlands have led to these areas that were formerly wetlands and now are settlements, human settlements, flooding every now and again. For every time it rains heavily, you find that water levels are literally almost to the rooftop of a particular home, a particular factory. And pretty much that tells that we should ideally be on the side of the environment. But I don't know, as the system is, that almost everyone is flooding to areas like Kampala for better lives, looking for better standards of living, and perhaps saying that they have no choice but to settle in wetlands anyways. Is it about our selfishness? Is it that we have no choice? What exactly is the reason? We look forward to understanding each other, understanding the wetlands, but also understanding us as humans, and who should take the risk of survival.
Okay, interesting questions there. One wonders where these rhetorical questions, or they are questions that actually need answers. Julie,
very true.
They
very
need
true.
Answers.
They need answers, and it looks like the wetlands are not even seeking answers, but they are seeking solutions by allowing floods to take place. We can see the effects of climate change. We can see, I mean, every time it rains heavily and areas that were formerly filled with swamps are now filled with structures, whenever they flood,
yes,
we are the very same people who come out and are like, government here to Yambe, government, where are you, you know?
Wow,
surely.
And, you know, when we have a bloating population, unfortunately, there is going to be dwelling in catchment areas like swamps. And because of this, of course, the characteristics of human dwelling means that we will have issues of dumping and whatnot, and water is not freely moving. I think 2-3 years ago, we had a flood within the center of Kampala. I remember it was Forest Mall, and the buildings next, the roads, the entire place was flooded. Actually, not many years ago, it was in 2023. So when you look at all this, it shows that the environment will always win in some way or another, and it could be in a negative or positive way. Now,
Olive,
yes,
allow me to interject a little. When you said that the environment will always win, and you've stated areas like Forest Mall, you remind me of as you're heading to Mutundwe, Nalukolongo, where right now there's, what petrol station is this? Former Kobil, and now it's Ruby's. A few years back, maybe 2019, 2020, or before 2019, whenever it rained, that place would flood. It would flood. It was always such a mess. But as we speak right now, of course, the drainage system was fixed in a way. And also understand there's a bit of a wetland area. So when you say, is it the environment to win or us to win, I wonder, because lately there's no flooding issues whenever it rains heavily. Did man win in this case?
Sometimes
I wonder.
Sometimes that question will be answered in 10, 20, 30 years. But anyway,
yeah.
Moving on, Robert, first of all, help us understand the background of the wetland in question. This is regarding the incident that occurred in Makinde. Please help us with the details of the specific wetland in question and why NEMA chose to act now.
Well, thank you, Olive. And of course, it is not very much of interesting news to people who were evicted yesterday. But we must understand that wetlands are very important, just like Julie talked about that. More so, there's aquatic life, we shouldn't forget. That's where you find the fish, the frogs, the crocodiles, and so much that is there that is also vital, apart from purifying the water in various water bodies that we have in the country. Now, the National Environment Management Authority, which is NEMA, is mandated to protect wetlands in Uganda. We must know that our wetland cover stood at about 13%. And as we talk, Uganda's wetland coverage has decreased from 13% now to 8%. And this is not in a period of 20 years. It's in a period of about 8 to 10 years. This is how fast we are losing our wetlands. Now, when you're losing wetlands, don't forget that they perform roles that Julie talked about here. Now, it is important to know that NEMA cannot keep watching as this destruction, as we lose these wetlands, and we test the impact of losing wetlands. So, it's been warning people who occupied various wetlands. When I was growing up, I thought the poor are the ones that occupy wetlands. And of course, we may say that population, there is a burst in population, so we must occupy these wetlands. But then, these NEMA evictions have proved, because usually they used to go to Rubiji, where you would find makeshifts. You'd find ramshackle shelters, people growing yams. But this particular wetland that is almost along the Entebbe Express highway, if you saw the homes that were being broken, the houses that were being crushed, these were storage buildings. These were state-of-the-art, a number of them, very good houses. And if you asked how much people paid to buy these places, I don't think there's a plot that would go beyond, below 25 million. Because I was listening, I was following some of the residents talk. We bought here the land, it was expensive to buy here. You'd even look at the shelters in place. So it means these people have the ability to buy somewhere else, but maybe this seemingly cheaper, or they simply desire these areas and they are not cognizant of the fact that these are wetlands that seek or need to be protected. Now, NEMA issued the warnings, and according to the law, when NEMA issues you with a warning, intention or direction to leave that place, you're given 21 days. Now, within those 21 days, you must write the executive director of NEMA, lodging your complaint, or go to court. Now, according to NEMA spokesperson, the residents here never went to court, much as they said they went to court. NEMA said they weren't aware of that. So if you do not file a complaint, and this is not just saying you filed, but it must be something that they can justify why maybe this eviction should not take place. And the court also can pronounce itself, maybe have an injunction stopping the eviction and something like that. So yesterday, NEMA went, because the 21 days expired actually before December last year. Now, yesterday they went in full swing and carried out the eviction exercise, which of course the residents resisted. They hit, and I remember the president was passing by. So the residents wanted to draw the attention of the president, but it wasn't their lucky day, because when people have been lucky, sometimes when they sense the president's convoy, they run in the road, the president will stop. But this time, I think also the president's protection unit was very strong, that they did not even allow them get closer to the main road. And remember also the NEMA officials, the environment police was around. So we saw them throw stones to the excavator and put a show, really resisting demolition of their houses. But of course, NEMA had better, and they were outsmarted, and over 100 houses as of yesterday were destroyed. Now, this operation is going to be a 4-day operation, and we don't know by the closure of the 4 days how many houses are going to be destroyed. But they want to reclaim this area and ensure that a wetland is a wetland and it's able to perform the vital roles that my sister talked about earlier.
Okay, now let's look at the legal standpoint, and I'm coming to you, Julie. Residents claim there is a pending court case. Does this eviction contradict any legal processes that could be ongoing at the moment?
Well, as Robert explained, that the NEMA has no idea of the pending court case. The residents say that they reported their case to NEMA, and I indeed watched the story of a NEMA official clearly stating that because there was no court order, nothing, no communication from the court, as NEMA, by the limitations and boundaries provided to them by the law of Uganda, they had all the rights to take action as they did, given that they also, as NEMA managed to give the residents notices prior, many months prior to the eviction. So as we stand right now, it's very complicated, because as yesterday we were talking about something regarding the law, and I stated that if you do not know the law, it's very hard for the law to protect you. And one thing I understand is many Ugandans actually buy land, accept land titles from wetlands without having detail of what the law says about that wetland. For them, it's more about, if it's cheap, let me buy it quickly, we'll survive, maybe sell it later on, maybe. There's always the quick fix of the story, but there's never the detail of taking time. Where am I buying? Is it a wetland? What does the law of Uganda, the law of the land, tell me about this particular wetland that I am buying? And many actually subjectively also reason out by stating that there are some businesses, large entities that are constructed in wetlands. If these entities are constructed in wetlands, why not me a Ugandan, a citizen of Uganda, and especially if these businesses are not originally from Uganda, someone will just subjectively take on that route of buying a plot of land in a wetland under such rationale, without necessarily taking time to understand the law.
On that note, I remember when we had the Lubigi evictions, Robert, one of the cases that was raised was that there was a petrol station within the area that was not demolished, and there was a police station as well that wasn't demolished. What reasons did NEMA give us at the time for why some establishments can be given permits to construct in wetlands vis-a-vis other individuals that could probably have their homesteads and businesses in the same place?
Now, this issue of wetlands is very complicated, I want to say, and it takes Ugandans who interest themselves very much. First, there was a time when our government issued land titles to occupants in wetlands, but that came to an end long time ago, if I may say, over 5 years back. And some of these land titles have even been cancelled. But remember, there are people who possess land titles that were gotten earlier, and these occupied wetlands. Now, there was also a time when NEMA used to issue what we call Environment Impact Assessment Report. That if you were going to work in a wetland, you'd go to NEMA. Now, NEMA would come and assess the impact of your activity in this particular wetland, and also give you guidelines of how to use this wetland but minimize the impact. I want to tell Ugandans, NEMA stopped issuing permits. NEMA stopped issuing impact assessment reports to justify usage of wetlands. So now anything to do with our wetland, you can't. Now, these exceptional cases...
allow me interject, Robert. Does that does that cancel out the wetlands policy of 1995, which emphasizes the importance of wetland conservation and sustainable utilization, and provides guidelines for wetland management, promoting their preservation, restoration, and wise use, and the policy advocating for the involvement of local communities in managing the wetland? In other words, wise use is the highlight for me. Does that disqualify the wetlands policy, 1995?
Well, that does, because previously that policy allowed, for example, industries. Now, the petrol station, I think that is Starbucks, that made a lot of talk over.
Yes.
I spoke to the executive director of NEMA some time back when this was so much on. He said first, by the time those people acquired that land, they were still issuing these impact assessment reports. And when you are given these impact assessment reports, there was a duration. So if by the time you took that particular place, it was legal and you set up this structure. Now, unless upon expiry of the terms and conditions and duration, now you can not have that infrastructure again in that particular place. Now you can only use wetlands, for example, for activities such as fishing, because previously they would accept a number of activities, but they noticed that when people get impact assessment reports, it had now become an excuse for many people to encroach on wetlands, then also violate the terms that were being given to them. So as of now, you can't say that this is a wetland, I have an impact assessment report, I am using it wisely, unless you're going in for agriculture purposes. For example, fish farming, that is accepted.
How about rice growing?
No, not rice growing. Actually, we've seen the present, if you hear of what we call immortal wetlands, where even bullets came out, the brothers there who are growing rice. Rice growing in wetlands is not a thing now that government is advocating for.
So what happens to those rice farms?
They are supposed to vacate these wetlands. They're supposed to vacate. That's why the president has...
Then where is rice supposed to be grown?
So well, because it has become one crop that is largely planted in the country, so
and consumed.
Yes, and for me, I think my understanding.
And we have a plant rice that you don't grow in wetlands. So there are rice varieties. If you are saying this particular, we are not going to lose our wetlands. The people in Mudimoto, I can mention a number of wetlands who are chased away. There is upland. This one grows on land. You don't have to go to the wetlands. So that is the rice now we are advocating for.
Okay.
The other area where I think wetlands have is recreation. But also that I'm being told is
What
being,
sort of recreation?
for example, the beaches, you know,
Okay.
where they could be seemingly, so there you can go to some of these, but as long as you're putting up a structure, that is not allowed. As long as you're putting
A permanent structure. Yes.
Wetlands are not for use for as dwelling places, as residents, or as industries. No, 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 no. So that is what the law is very much against. And for me, what is annoying me these days is that the land are acting as if they are not aware. Today, many professors, many journalists, some of them don't have that money. Many
just
MPs,
mention that people that have the money.
Many people that have the money
yes.
are yearning to build on hilltops.
Okay.
Well knowing, these are land people. These are land people.
What's
well
wrong with
knowing
hilltops?
they are removing vegetation. Yeah? These are people who bring excavators, totally remove all the vegetation because they want to have a clear view of Kampala. You know, a clear view of the city, a clear view, clear view, clear view. Now, these people are causing trouble. They are killing Mother Nature. Today, very many rich people, educated people, want to build near the lake shores for good view.
We have hotels by the lake shores, Robert.
Very many rich
these
people
are
today.
tourist attractions boosting Uganda's tourism sector.
Hotels we can say, but also there is a buffer, I think about 100 meters given. But you see this. Now, very many rich people today want to occupy wetlands. A person, let me tell you, a person has the capacity of bringing a Sino-truck. 7 Sino-trucks of Maram. How much is a Sino-truck of Maram?
To fill the show.
To fill that wetland. A person who has the ability to construct a storage, a flat. If I was the managing director of NEMA, maybe I would even feel sympathy for these who have makeshifts. We see they're staying in my unit, they are poor people, they have nowhere to go. But I would very fast destroy these flats. Because, you know, you're buying a plot of 50 million in a wetland or more. You're building a house of about 500 million. Hell, what brings you in a wetland?
Now, Robert, that's a beautiful question. Dear viewer, you can join this conversation. Conservation or displacement, that's what we are looking at, Uganda's wetland protection dilemma. And we are asking the question, how best can NEMA conduct their eviction of encroachers, people that are living or dwelling in wetlands. Now, Julie, the question for you, but before, you can join the conversation on WhatsApp number 0709-602-592. Julie, Robert says, asks a question. How can a person worth their salt buy land in a wetland? Now, the question is, do they always know that this is a wetland? Because I've had stories where part of the land is actually not a wetland, but the land is bordering bits of the wetland. So, do they always know, or they're duped by land brokers, owners of these lands, and, you know, they're told, you know, yeah, the water is near, but you're safe.
Indeed, when you use the word duped, you remind me recently, it was, I think, last week, I was having a conversation with someone, and indeed they were expressing the fact that a land broker had duped them into buying into a wetland. They did not know, and they only discovered after
construction.
Paying. Thank God she has not constructed, but she's now looking for someone to buy.
Now, this is the dilemma here. I don't understand certain things. A wetland, I want to believe, is as obvious as obvious. You know?
Maybe
because
not
yesterday,
so much.
Actually, she expressed that at the time she was buying, it was
dry.
a whole bush.
Imagine, Robert,
It was a whole bush, so she could not necessarily tell, is it just a bush on dry ground? Is it just a bush on clear ground? And it was sold to her.
In law, just a minute.
No, just
when
a
you're
moment.
purchasing land,
Imagine
in law,
buying
there's
land.
what we call due diligence.
Although there's that too.
Imagine
Yes,
buying land in a season like the season we just had in February, when it was scorching hot. The grass is burnt to smithereens. So you come in and everything looks okay. So go ahead with the due
Would it
diligence part.
apply to a wetland though?
You must understand
dry.
first, the chances that land has a land title are very
Yes.
minimal.
Yes.
Of course, one would say not all people are having land and structures that has land titles. But two, people usually buy wetlands when they are aware. Most of them, they are aware. But they have such excuses.
I think
See
you're
that
taking
flat.
them all to the
No, I'm not taking
guillotine
them to the guillotine.
unfairly.
But yesterday, I was privileged that I was at a certain place when this eviction was taking place. Actually, I was in a garage. And there were people who were being called because their homes were being broken. But one thing I had is, among that conversation, as we were talking about this, with things happening, NEMA, one told a friend whose house was being broken around Muganzi Raza, and he said, I remember very well telling you, and the friend said, amazima mwalabukane mutagula. He said, nagula, you know. But he said, when I looked at the houses around, I was like, how will they break these flats?
So it goes back to the
He thought,
subjective rationale.
He
as opposed
assumed,
to-
and you Ugandans are funny, that some of these flats must be belonging to big people in government. Therefore,
So it was a subjective.
therefore they can't be broken.
Well,
And
Robert,
he
I would
took
like
over that.
to share some of the views from, some of the comments from our viewers. And Patrick says, Dear Olive, unless the law is enforced justly on all people with different status, it's evident that construction on wetlands is illegal to the poor, yet legal to the rich. For example, industries in Namandhi are all in wetlands. Look at Namuwongo area, Nachivubo Stadium, among others. Such irregularities will always make NEMA face hardships in implementation of the evictions. That's a comment from Patrick. Robert, I would like for you to answer that later as we close, actually. The next comment is from Godfrey in Masindi, and he says, my concern is this: let NEMA give districts NEMA map of every district. Basically, he's saying let NEMA give districts maps in the country, because many sometimes, let me paraphrase, he basically wants the NEMA to have maps of where the wetlands are located in every district. And he says many sometimes have bought land along wetlands and they have not yet started building. Let this operation affect all without segregation. So basically, the maps, so that before you start construction, you are advised, like that friend of that person Julie was referring to, they haven't yet constructed, they now know. Of course, they will lose some money, but at least it's not as much as the money they would have lost if they went into construction. And then Vincent says, I hope the wetlands eviction in Chibiri is not someone's or investor's interest. And Phillips from Karamoja says, just a question, did NEMA just come to Uganda last year? People need to be educated on policies that concern environmental protection, including their surroundings. The blame should be to the officers in charge and the Ministry of Land. Even in the region, people are allowed to build near riverbanks that are supposed to be green belts. Shame to those who slept on the job. Also, politicking has to be blamed as well. Your parting shots regarding some of these comments.
Well, first, I want to tell all Ugandans, our viewers here, that what NEMA is doing is a tremendous job, and we should welcome restoration of our wetlands. That is very, very important. Because if you're losing, you had 13 and now you're about 8%, and the numbers are continuing, definitely we need to take action, or else we've all tested what happens when it rains. We've all tested that dryness that we are going through, and these effects, our children are going to face them even tougher if we do not act now. But also, to NEMA, selective justice, selective enforcement creates bias. This is where people don't appreciate the work you're doing. So let's go for the rich, let's go for the poor, let's go for the powerful, let's go for the weak. Let it be restoration of our wetlands. Now, these are some of the reasons that people have pointed out. But as far as reclaiming wetlands, that is not something we should bargain. We should all support, and Ugandans, be very careful before you spend your money. Because these issues of thinking, so-and-so has a house there, sometimes even they deceive you, that belongs to so-and-so, they can't come here. At the end of the day, so and so may not be the so and so, and your house will go.
Well, thank you so much, Robert. Now, Godfrey continues to say that, Philip, sorry, from Karamoja continues to say, educate environment officers to know their roles, listen to people and find ways to understand their plight. And also, first, there should be prior information a year in advance so that the occupants should look for where to build a house for the family. Julie, your parting remarks. Phelps did ask a question. Did NEMA come to Uganda last year?
Surely, indeed, did NEMA come to Uganda last year? And for me, this conversation to NEMA, to the citizens, to every stakeholder, one who's supposed to educate the citizen who's supposed to learn and follow policies, it's a question of a conversation of stewardship. Allow me go spiritual. One thing for sure is we all have a creator. And ultimately, when we go back to him, he'll ask accountability of what we used, what we had in our power. As citizens, did we use the knowledge? As NEMA, as authorities, as the government, as policy makers, did we take action in the rightful stewardship of the environment that the Lord has given us? Food for thought. Hopefully you do the right thing and be a good steward, because to whom much is given, much is expected. And one who is faithful with the little, more will be added unto them.
Preach it, Pastor.
Well, thank you so much, Julie, for your views, and thank you, Robert, for the same, and dear viewers that have commented. Thank you so much for being a part of the program. Now, we'll be taking a short break. When we come back, we'll have Good Morning Uganda Tourism Express, and later on, Good Morning Uganda Business Updates. Stick around.
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Junko.
Yo.
Wachikuwa. Check the shopping, man. What's your secret?
Uganda wange, haven't you heard of the Parish Development Model, PDM?
Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk.
No, Sebatia. It is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a poultry project, and now things are moving.
Junko. I thought I was one of your friends.
You are.
But you left me behind.
I didn't leave you in poverty. What you do, just visit your LC2 chairperson and your parish chief, and start the process of economic transformation. Just like that. The Parish Development Model is an initiative from the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government, designed to transform all lives of Ugandans for the better. PDM, my parish, my development, my life.
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
What an amazing place to be this morning. To you that has been walking this journey with us, thank you. It's been a week dedicated to our Muslim brothers and sisters. The first episode was just about the history of Gaddafi Mosque and going through Ramadan, the Ramadan period itself. And when we got to the second episode, it was talking about the cultures and tradition and the history, diving more into it, especially relating to tourism about this particular mosque. And today, being our climax, we are also shooting at the rooftop of Gaddafi Mosque, which has the most beautiful views. And here you get to see the 7 hills of Kampala. I don't want to spoil for you, but stick with us to get to know more about these hills and what is there for you to see on top of Gaddafi Mosque. My name is Zakia Lucky. Welcome to the GMU Tourism Express. We are at a strategic location where you get to see the 7 hills of Kampala, and with me is again Muhammad, who has been exhausting religious tourism with us, especially in the Islam tradition. He's going to be introducing himself to you and telling us more about these hills.
Yeah, so viewers, once again, you are most welcome. Right here we are at the top of our mosque, from where we can have a more defined view of Kampala, more especially the 7 traditional hills which make the city of Kampala, or where Kampala originally began. So these sites are one of them is right here where we are, or the Kampala Hill. It's in the center of the city. And this is where the colonial activities began. So Kampala of today began from here and spread to different directions. And from here you can also be able to see the other 6 hills of Kampala. From this hill, we have another hill called Mengo. Mengo is in the south of Kampala, from where we are standing. And Mengo is where you find the palace for the king of Uganda. So that hill is one of the 7 traditional hills where Kampala began due to the presence of the Buganda Administration Center. Okay. Then another hill is called Rubaga. Rubaga is also in the south of Kampala, where you can see the twin towers.
Yes.
Those twin towers is the church, which was built in the early 20th century by the missionaries who came here to preach Christianity. So when those people came here, they were accommodated to that hill by the king of Uganda, and they began to preach within the boundaries of Uganda. Then they didn't come alone. They came with another group of Anglicans who were also settled on another hill called Namirembe. So that brown dome is at top of a church, yes, which was started around 1919 by the missionaries who came to preach Christianity, and they also began from Uganda. So after the unification, all those activities began to spread beyond the boundaries of Uganda. So the presence of the 2 churches on top of a hill make those sites to be among the 7 traditional hills of Kampala. Now, still in the south of Kampala, we have another hill called Kibuli. Kibuli is one of the 7 traditional hills. Why? When the Arabs came here, while here, they managed to attract some locals because of their tradition of praying. And some people were convinced and voluntarily chose to become Muslims. So among those pioneers were some members of the Buganda royal family. So after converting to Islam, these people, some of them were not as interested in the traditional religion practiced here by the locals. So after converting to Islam, they chose to relocate from the Buganda Parish and went and established their mosque on top of that hill. So that's where today you find one of the old mosques in Kampala. Yeah. Then another hill is called Nakasero. That area where you see the towering buildings. That area became more administrative after the colonial activities were relocated from here and established their offices on that site. So that's where today you find the Parliament of Uganda, the ministries and embassies, five-star hotels, post office, the High Court of Uganda, all located to that part of Kampala, including the Presidential Lodge. Yeah, like today, you can see the white building.
Yes.
That is a hotel, and is a recent 5-star in Kampala. It's called the Pearl of Africa, reflecting the nickname for Uganda. Then we have the tiling building with glasses. It's called the Pension House. It's also meant to generate more income to our National Social Security Fund. Then we have Sheraton in Kampala, the off-white building.
Okay.
That is the first 5-star in Uganda. Yeah. Then also have another hill, and that hill is just behind the domes. And that hill is called Makerere. That's where you find the first public university of East Africa, which is over 100 years. Yeah. So, in brief, that is Kampala, according to the 7 traditional hills. To remind you about those hills, we have hill number 1, that is Old Kampala. Hill number 2 is Mengo, where you find the palace. Hill number 3 is Rubaga, where you find the Catholic Church. Hill number 4 is Namirembe for the Anglican Church. Hill number 5 is Makerere for the university. Hill number 6 is Nakasero for the administration area. Then hill number 7 is Kibuli, where you find one of the old mosques in Kampala.
How was the, okay. Hey, okay.
So, as we wind up our activity here, I would like, first of all, to thank all those Ugandans who have sacrificed their time and money to come and visit our mosque, the National Mosque. When you come here, you have a lot to learn, as we have already presented to you some of this content here. And we are still pushing forward, analyzing and making more research about different sites and their significance as far as Kampala is concerned. So I can assure you, by the next time you come here, we shall have a lot more to see and also a lot more to learn from here. Thank you very much.
Is there something?
Yeah, so I was appealing to Ugandans to come. What it is about to visiting the mosque and make your contribution here so that we can also be able to maintain this building here and also attract more visitors from outside to come and visit as many sites as they can afford. That would also enhance our income and make our economy grow. Yeah.
Yes. So besides the 7 hills and calling up visitors, what could you want your closing remarks to be, or is any other thing that you've probably forgotten that Ugandans or tourists should know about this mosque?
What most people should know about this mosque is that this is the first tourist attraction in Kampala. You know, our city here is very congested as of now. And some of these people normally refuse to walk around because of the congestion and the hassle they have to go through. But once these people come to this site, where we have this minaret, everybody can be able to have a 360 degrees view of the city Kampala. And to the students and the learners, when you come here, there is a lot to learn about the history of Uganda. So, those are some of my remarks about this mosque, and I would be very grateful to see more Ugandans coming here because this property belongs to Ugandans.
Yes.
Yeah.
And to you that has lived in Kampala over the years and has not taken a step to visit this mosque now, make it a point. We just give you a review about it, but make sure you visit it and also get to see with your eyes. It has been religious tourism, interesting as it is. We are going to still take you to other parts of it so that you can learn so much more. And throughout this episode, to remind you, I have been dressed by Tessie Hijabs. If you want to know about their locations, find it on our social media platforms. Now stick with us every Monday to Thursday at 7 a.m. There's so much more that we discuss regarding tourism. Make it a point to be with us, and thank you for being with us. Have a beautiful day.
Well, thank you, Zakia Lucky, for that trip around religious tourism. And that brings us to GMU Business as I welcome you back from GMU Tourism Express. My name is Julie F. Nantabamosisi, and let's start off with matters electricity. The Uganda Electricity Generation Company Limited has partnered with Bujagali Energy Limited to establish an exchange program, and the collaboration is aimed at easing maintenance works in the energy generation business. The interaction of Uganda Electricity Generation Company Limited and Bujagali Energy Limited is intended to foster exchange programs ranging from safety management and reliable power generation. During the visit of the Bujagali power plant in Jinja, the UEGL committed to leverage on private power investors' experience for further collaboration in maintaining the hydroelectric power plants. UEGL is a government-owned power generation company, and it operates 5 generation plants, while Bujagali Energy Limited is a private entity operating the second largest power generation plant in Uganda. With a production capacity of 250 megawatts, Bujagali contributes 31% on the national electricity grid. Well, hopefully this also solves the problem of the current rampant load shedding in most areas in Uganda, seeing as Omeme is leaving the country. But moving on to matters pay TV, the emergence of internet-run digital streaming decoders in Ugandan pay TV market has significantly impacted the profitability of existing service providers. These providers claim that these devices enable unregulated market retailers to profit from television content without having the jurisdictional rights to broadcast it. Despite regulatory warnings to traders supplying these decoders, consumers view this as a digital disruption. This is a StarSat decoder, one of several brands of internet-run decoders currently available on the Ugandan market, offering up to 400 local and international television and radio stations. Now, according to the UCC, these products were first reported in 2023 by existing regulated market players, MultiChoice and StarTimes, and the regulator confirmed through a letter to the Uganda National Bureau of Standards that these devices are imported from Dubai, but manufactured in China. Speaking to the PR and communications manager of MultiChoice Uganda, the suppliers of these decoders locally are not licensed by the regulator and have not paid for the rights to broadcast this content in Uganda. And users of these decoders, especially in the central region, have grown into the hundreds of thousands. This trend can be attributed to their affordability and ease of use. Once you have a dish from any provider installed, one can access over 400 premium TV channels for 20,000 Uganda shillings per month and 55,000 Uganda shillings for 3 months and 140,000 Uganda shillings for a whole year, paid digitally to an offshore receiver. This is far below what local licensed players offer, and they accuse MultiChoice and other pay TV service providers of propagating monopolistic business practices on Ugandans. The regulator, however, deems these devices illegal and warns of their potential to facilitate cybercrime. As this matter is investigated further, it is easy for consumers to view this as a technology technological disruption. However, legal steps to obtain licensing and gain broadcasting rights for the content shown on most channels have been breached. Interesting story there, especially if you think about the high prices of pay TV in Uganda, given the monopoly of the industry. But let's look at matters skills. Over 1,000 farmers and entrepreneurs from Maugola in Sembabule district have completed a 4-day business training program hosted by Enterprise Uganda. The program aimed at transforming local agricultural practices into professional market-driven businesses, provided participants with crucial skills to capitalize on Maugola's rich agricultural potential, including its fertile land, abundant water resources, and growing coffee and dairy industries. Now, the training, which focused on turning subsistence farming into sustainable income-generating ventures, addressed key sectors such as coffee and dairy farming. Local farmers, historically reliant on inconsistent practices, were taught methods for improving coffee cultivation and pest control. And while dairy farming was positioned as a promising opportunity for both local consumption and value-added products like butter, yogurt, and cheese. Beyond agriculture, the program sought to address Maugola's dependence on government grants like Emyoga and the Parish Development Model. And the Member of Parliament for Maugola South, Goreti Namuga, says despite these initiatives offering temporary relief, many beneficiaries have struggled to turn the funds into long-term wealth. The training emphasized financial literacy, capital management, and leveraging government resources for sustainable growth. A significant challenge for entrepreneurs in Maugola is the difficulty in accessing affordable capital. With commercial bank interest rates often exceeding 12% per month, many local farmers and small business owners face financial constraints that hinder their business expansion. Now let's look at matters the Uganda Railway Corporation. The Uganda Railway Corporation, assisted by police, has evicted new encroachers from the railway line in Namamve. Some illegal occupants vacated voluntarily, while others await government compensation due to their prolonged presence. Officials from Uganda Railway Corporation have conducted an operation in Namamve with the assistance of the Uganda police and successfully evicted new encroachers from the Uganda railway line. Some encroachers, aware of their illegal occupancy, voluntarily vacated the premises, coordinating their departure with police to facilitate a peaceful eviction. Now, according to the public relations officer, a subset of occupants remains unevicted as they are entitled to compensation from the government due to their prolonged presence on the land. And the eviction exercise is ongoing in Kampala and Mukono, targeting illegal occupants from railway reserve land. Well, finally, participants from various factories under the Uganda Manufacturers Association have undergone a 3-day training aimed at enhancing their marketing skills. Now, the training focused on key areas such as communication and sales mastery, foundations of marketing excellence, and leveraging on digital marketing platforms to stay competitive. However, concerns were raised over expatriates securing high-paying jobs in the sector that could have otherwise benefited Ugandan citizens. Now, let's look at what the forex rates look like as of 10th March 2025. The US dollar opened at 3,664.86 buying and sold at 3,674.86 selling, and by midday it was at 3,664.05 buying and selling at 3,674.05 selling. It closed in on at 3,664.41 buying and sold at 3,674.41. Looking at the pound, it bought at 4,734.78 and sold at 4,747.70, and the euro was buying at 3,973.31 and sold at 3,984.16. Looking at the Kenyan shilling, It was buying at 228.37 and sold at 28.45, and the Tanzanian shilling was at 1.39, buying and selling at 1.39, and the South African rand did buy at 200.41 and sold at 200.95. About 4 minutes to 8 a.m. Good Morning Uganda does continue. Up next is the agenda and the conversation of the day. The topic of the day will be engaged in, so stay tuned as you look forward to that conversation, and later on sports on Good Morning Uganda will also take shape. But Good Morning Uganda does continue.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Was brought to you by
just take a polite loan of 200k to stock on my shop. The signs and symptoms of success. The bank commander, not the bank teller.
Why hassle for a loan when you've got MTN Momo? We're sorting it. Use the Momo app or dial *165*5# for all quick loans. Choose from the different loan options from our partners and get one that works for you. Together, we're unstoppable.
Juko.
Yo.
Check the shopping man. What's your secret?
Uganda, haven't you heard of the Parish development model PDM?
Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk.
No, Sebatia. It is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a portrait project, and now things are moving.
Juko. I thought I was one of your friends.
You are.
But you left me behind.
I didn't leave you in poverty. What you do, just visit your LC2 chairperson and your parish chief and start the process of economic transformation. Just like that. The Parish development model is an initiative from the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform all lives of Ugandans for the better. PDM, my parish, my development, my life.
In a nation hungry for truth, a world where every story matters, there exists a beacon of trust and reliability. For decades, they've been our voice and our window to the world, holding the mirror of our history. With 4 TV stations and 11 radio channels spanning 27 languages, they stand as guardians of information, defenders of truth. With Mascari Heritage Advantage, they uphold every citizen's right to reliable and free information. Their archived stories shaped our past and illuminate our present. Yet now, as new challenges arise and the world evolves, their mission faces its greatest test yet. Be part of our journey and let's navigate the unknown, uncover the untold, and safeguard our future together. Tune into your public broadcaster, for it is the intersection of trust and truth. Because to UBC, your story, and every voice matters. UBC, inspiring Uganda.
We are 6 women. We started our business of a nursery bed and have so far run it for 4.5 years. We started a circle and would get money out and keep sharing. After accumulating enough money, we started to buy seedlings and plant trees. The little would get would pay school fees for our children as women. Personally, I am also educating my grandchildren. One is in senior 4 and the other is in senior 1.
Banza kusima muzeyi Museveni tibuhabuga Babyface.
I want to start by thanking Mzee Museveni Tibaburwa Babyface for what he has done for us. He got us from the villages when we were stuck because he saw we didn't have what to do. Right now we are in Toro Zonal Hub, the one that trains the young generation.
Tumusima sitine bugarukiro. Ezeshaha turiyo muri Toro Zonal Hub project ya muzeyi eyatiro kwegesa itwe ensinganto. Nyowe ndi carpenter.
I am now a carpenter and we do chairs, beds, doors and everything else that is found in the furniture world.
Tubanza kusima abashomesa bitu abitwine.
We want to thank our teachers. They have done a good job imparting skills to us to see that we do such things, yet we were in the villages and could not do anything. We are now waiting for graduation and put in practice what we have learned.
After graduation tukareba twaza kutangirira nkahi.
Amazina Ntinomcha Grace. Kibina barachetanya bare Women's Goat Rearing Group.
My name is Tinomcha Grace and I am part of Nyabubare Women Goat Rearing Group, consisting of 30 women. We initially started with a plan to rear goats, but we faced some financial constraints. Fortunately, the IWEP program came to our aid. With the funds we received, we were able to purchase 30 goats.
Twaprayinga twakora ebiri kugendererwaho byona sente twazitunga twagura embuzi 30 twarwanisa kugira ngo tushashure esente ezo.
We were determined to repay the loan even if it meant not making any profits initially. As the goats started giving birth, we sold the offsprings. A portion of the earnings was deposited into the bank and the balance was shared among our members to improve their living standards.
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, thank you for sticking with us here on Good Morning Uganda. My name is Olive Monica Najuma, and this is the agenda segment where we delve into topics of national importance. And as Ugandans, this is the segment where we normally have opinion leaders, policy makers to delve deeper into some of the issues that interest or sometimes aggrieve Ugandans. So join me, let's have a conversation that is of utmost importance to us today. Now, I will be speaking to a gentleman that is a voice for workers in Uganda, and our topic of conversation today is organization of trade unions and workers' welfare. And yeah, we get into it because the National Organization of Trade Unions, NOTU, plays a very pivotal role in advocating for workers' rights and improving the conditions of workers in Uganda. So that's the conversation we'll be getting into, workers' welfare, why it is important, and why it is also very beneficial for you to be part of this organization or being part of trade unions. And I will be speaking to a gentleman. I'll let him introduce himself. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Monica. Mauku Richard Moses is my name. I am the General Secretary of Uganda Hotels, Food, Tourism, Supermarkets and Allied Workers Union, but also the Treasurer General of the National Organization of Trade Unions, NOTU. I wish to take this opportunity to thank Ugandans, especially the workers, and extend my sincere gratitude for the work that you do to develop our economy. I wish you the very best, and also wish you a happy new year.
Okay. Yes, so speaking of a happy new year, I've not seen you since the year began.
Sure.
So happy new year to you.
Thank you. Happy new year to you too.
All right. Now, let's get into the conversation. First of all, for a viewer that has never been a part of any conversation regarding NOTU and its importance, how has NOTU been instrumental in advancing workers' rights and welfare in Uganda?
Thank you. I think the best way to approach this is to first and foremost describe what trade unions are, what they mean, and what they do, and what their function is.
Yes.
Trade unions were formed way back in 1883, between 1883 and 1887. And it was a struggle, a long struggle between those that were employing others and governments. And that time we did not basically have employer-employee relationship. Those in employment were referred to as slaves and or servants. And the people that we see today as employers were masters, lords, merchants, and so that relationship was more to do with slave, servant, and master. So during that time when economic development started to evolve, many people were getting into work, and work which was not regulated, work which was not paid. For that purpose, some few people working in one of the factories in one of the places called Torpedo in Europe chose to form themselves into a united front. And that is how trade unions started. It was a struggle until 1919, when governments, employers, and workers, after fighting for a long time, agreed to form themselves into an organization that regulates labor and employment under the United Nations. And that organization is called ILO, or International Labour Organization.
Okay.
That is headquartered in Switzerland, Geneva. And since 1919, the three partners, the tripartite partners, governments, employers, organizations, and workers' organizations, meet annually in the International Labour Conference to regulate labor and employment issues in the whole world. So the definition or prescription of a trade union is that organization which is representative, it is continuous, independent, democratic, formed, managed, and run and financed by workers themselves for the purpose and or function of advancing, advocating, promoting, protecting, and defending the workers' social and economic interests. And that is all done through collective bargaining and basing on both local and international labor legal frameworks.
Yes.
That is the function of a trade union.
Okay. All right. Now, Mr. Mawere, when we look at the function of the trade union, one also can't help but think about some of the challenges that workers in the country face. In your own perspective, as someone that works with workers with trade unions, what would you say are some of the primary challenges that Ugandan workers are facing, and how is NOTUD helping them resolve those?
First and foremost, workers are the weakest group in employment. In employment, there are those three people that exist or coexist 24/7. In every workplace, there is government, there is an employer, and there is a worker. Among the three parties, the weakest group is the workers. Remember that all these three parties have interests in every workplace. An employer will have an interest, for example, if it's a business entity, the employer will have the interest of making profit. The worker will have the interest of earning a living. And the government will also have the interest of picking tax from every sale. So all of us compete for money within a work organization. Government needs money there through taxation, the employer needs money as a profit, and the worker needs money as salary and all allowances. So who has the right to access to that money? The government has rights using the law. If government wants to get tax, it is by law, by 15th you must have filed returns. Pay as you earn and all other taxes by 15th of the preceding months. When the employer wants to access that money, whatever it is, he will ask the accountant, do a check. What happens to the worker if he also wants to access that money? It's begging. So under the circumstances, you find that it is the worker among the three stakeholders or tripartite partners who is on the begging side. The government commands, the other one commands, the worker is supposed to beg. So under the circumstances, the International Labour Organization or governments under the international labor standards provide that workers shall be represented by this organization that is their own, that can speak for them, so that they can also sit on the round table with the employers through representation to access those facilities that are supposed to be shared by the three persons that constitute a workplace. So under the circumstances, we have trade unions in all organizations, in all countries that are member states to International Labour Organization. And these trade unions function, like I said, is to advance, advocate, promote, protect, and defend the workers' interests in the work organization through collective bargaining. So the unions are meant to conduct collective bargaining, to negotiate the terms and conditions of employment for the workers that they represent. And that is also by law. Both the international standards provide for the rights to freedom of association under Convention 87 and also Convention 98 that gives liberty and freedom for workers to negotiate and determine their terms and conditions of employment. Likewise, the National Constitution under Articles 29 and 40, they also provide for the liberties of workers to freedom of association and also the freedom to negotiate their terms and conditions of employment. So NOTU, as the umbrella organization that represents workers, is basically to supervise the functionality of trade unions in Uganda, to ensure that this function is being undertaken in accordance to the provisions of the different forms or pieces of law.
Okay.
And the workers that follow under unions have their terms far better than those that do not, in most cases. So it is important and advisable that all workers get into unions or within their sectors so that they can together fight for their interests.
Okay. Mr. Ore, you have, I like that actually, the ending where you say that the workers that are in unions have better terms vis-a-vis their mates that are not in unions. Please expound on that.
The terms under or within organizations that recognize and work with trade unions, the terms change periodically using the collective bargaining agreements that are done and reviewed after every period. If the period of the agreement is 2 years, after every 2 years, you sit again and review the terms and conditions under which you employ these people. So that is why it is important that all workers get organized so that we can have that common voice to go and sit in the boardroom with the directors of a given company so we can together agree on how we shall be governed under the principle of social dialogue in ILO, which is one of the pillars of decent work.
Okay. Please join the conversation. We are speaking matters workers' welfare, and I am speaking to Mr. Mawere, who is, Mr. Mauku, who is from an organization from the organization of trade unions in Uganda. So come join us, and you can ask him some questions if you have any on WhatsApp number 0709602592. Now, Mr. Mauku, we understand that there is the high cost of living today, and workers are feeling the brunt of this. So looking at the high cost of living and economic pressures that workers are facing, because there is one thing that we must agree on, that the cost of living will rise, but in most cases, the salaries, the benefits will stay the same no matter what. I mean, some people's salaries never changed since COVID-19, but we know that things changed. The war in Ukraine contributed to the change in the prices of certain commodities that we buy for food. So looking at all that, how is NOTU helping workers? Are there any specific initiatives aimed at cushioning these impacts on the workers?
First and foremost, when it comes to issues of balancing between the needs of workers and the needs of the employers. Like I said, the employer is having an upper hand in decision making. The employee doesn't have. From the initial stages of when and how you get into employment, during the interviews, they will always ask you, how much can we pay you? And given the very high problem of unemployment,
yes,
many workers tell these employers that you can pay me anything.
And that's where the problem starts.
It starts from there. Uganda operates without a minimum wage. So the employers have it when they ask for, when they do an advert for one position or two, 500 people run
2,000
for that one position. So the employer feels so big when he's having a chain of people who are struggling for this one job. So if they ask you under the circumstances, you say, pay me anything. It's until when you get this job, do it for a month or two, that you begin to realize
that you shot yourself in the foot.
Exactly. So if you are not in the union, the employer will tell you that I negotiated with you, I agreed with you that I will pay you this money. And you accepted, and you signed a contract to that effect. If you are privileged to get into an employment where they issue contracts. Many of them, especially in the private sector, do not even issue contracts. They tell you go and start work. You work for 30 days, you don't know how much you'll earn, you don't know what your terms are, but you're working. So the situation is that fragile. that high unemployment versus the authority by the employee, the employer. You start work when you even don't know your terms, if you have not been given a contract. And even when you have been given a contract, these contracts are short. It is a one-page contract. But when we negotiate a collective bargaining agreement, it's 40 pages or 50. You get. So the most important thing is governments knew that an employer is striving to make more profit. The employee is also striving to, but the employee is a disadvantaged person in employment who needs to be represented by this organization that is not paid by your employer, but it is authoritatively the organization registered to represent your interests.
Yes.
So it begins from workers appreciating and comprehending that the only leverage they have, or we have as employees, is to get organized. One scholar said that if you want to be recognized, you must be organized. So when we remain disorganized, the employer will decide without your participation. And yet the laws provide that you are supposed to negotiate your terms and conditions of employment through your representative workers organization, which is not the case for most of the employees in Uganda. So when you look at the level of the economic growth, the level at which inflation grows, and somebody has been given a salary and you work 10 years with the same salary, everything else is changing, but your salary is static.
You're working 10 years, same salary,
yes,
and you do not even have, for instance, we have pension funds like NSSF, but there are many organizations that are not remitting this. So after 10, 20 years of working, probably for some reason or another, there is early retirement and you do not have pension.
We have always said that there is a very serious mismatch in Uganda when it comes to industrialization and labor administration. The two are not matching. We have so many industries cropping up, mushrooming every other day. Labor administration has remained a department within the Ministry of Gender. And this is a function that is meant to be administered by the ministry responsible for labor. All countries everywhere in the world, they have a separate ministry that deals with employment and labor issues. In Uganda, it is merged with many other functions: gender, labor, social development, women, youth, old people, people with disability, culture, all into the same thing, which is meant to be for specifically employment and labor. So there is little attention given by government to issues of labor and employment.
So are you saying that mixing up labor issues in one
ministry, it undermines the function of employment and labor because the attention is not enough. We need inspectors. We have over 500, no, almost 1 million companies that are supposed to be inspected by the Ministry of Labor. But the Ministry of Labor does not even have 100 inspectors. So when will the 100 people inspect 1 million companies every year?
And they are mushrooming companies
when we have we have millions and millions of workers. We have labor officers that are less than 200. We have a labor court, the industrial court, one court sitting in Kampala to administer for the whole country. So when does this one court attend to cases of the 2 million Ugandans who have complaints?
Who are in the workforce.
And it only sits in Kampala. How do you expect this one employee who is employed in Mugahinga, was in Mugahinga 2 days ago, those ends of Mugahinga, Bwindi, we have workers there.
We have workers in Ajumani.
At the border,
Ajumani,
Swam, Karamoja. Yes. When do they come to file cases and attend to their cases in Kampala? So the labor function is one of the big problems that we have. It has been put together with very many other functions within the ministry responsible for labor. So we have a lot of issues, and we have been calling on government, one, to at least re-centralize the labor function. You will also find that we have labor officers that are not workers of the Ministry of Labor. They are recruited by a different ministry, local government, which has no expertise to deal with labor issues. And many of these districts don't find it a priority. They actually have no labor officers in many of the districts today. They have not recruited labor officers. Those that have labor officers, there is one position in the ministry, I mean in local government for a labor officer. Where does he go if he grows by rank? He changes and that position will remain vacant. So we have so many issues relating to labor administration that also hinge to the problems of the workers. The problems are many. The people that are supposed to be referees in law are not there. Those that are there are too few to attend to all the workers in this country. So the only privilege is at least get organized into one of the unions within your sector so that this union can try to engage with your employer to ensure that your terms and conditions, including salary, is negotiated periodically. That is what I can submit.
Okay. Well, interesting conversation. Now, I am speaking to the General Secretary of Uganda, of the National Organization of Trade Unions, that is Mr. Moses Mauko, and we are looking at the welfare of workers in Uganda. Now, you can join the conversation on WhatsApp number 0709-602-592. The same number is displayed on your screen. Now, Mr. Mauko, looking at, you have really painted a grave picture, and it concerns me. Most of the workers are people that are educated. I would say they know their rights, but probably that is an assumption. Why is it that many are not in unions? It feels like the whole conversation of unionizing, be part of a union, is foreign to many workers. I have friends in the corporate sector, and I don't think I know any of them that is part of a union. So it takes me back. Why is it that unionizing is not something many workers are having a conversation about?
Well, we have a duty as trade union organizations to speak about unions.
Yes.
But in tertiary institutions, some of them have it as a course unit, others bring it about as a topic as industrial relations. Trade unions are all over the world, and they are the organizations that represent employees. But some of these people, some of you in the corporate women and men, think that you are educated enough and you can fend for yourselves, which is sometimes not the case.
Are you throwing it back at us? Why do I feel
Both
like...
of us.
Okay.
We come here and provide this information.
Okay.
But until somebody has gotten a personal problem, that is the time he will remember to look for a union. Even in organizations where the unions are recognized, by virtue of the fact that there is freedom of association, so there is freedom to join and also freedom not to join. We have organizations where we have the union representing, but some employees choose not to become. And they ride on the others who have become. Because when you negotiate the terms, in most cases
everyone
it will cut
is
across.
favored. Yes.
You get. It is only the labor union's check of regulations that helps to catch all these people together within the bargaining unit. Otherwise, it is a problem of ignorance by the employees about their... You may claim to know your rights, but we have 190 conventions. If I asked those corporate people, how many of these conventions do they know? They don't know many of them, if not all of them. We have 8 labor laws in Uganda. And you may not know these 8 labor laws, what is entailed in each of these laws. But those are the laws that provide for your relationship with your employer. As and to whether you are realizing what these laws provide or not, you don't know. But for us, we take time. We are part and parcel of the process to even develop these laws. So we understand them best. And we are placed in the best way to represent those who are working for other people. So I just want to take this call once again on all Ugandans to interest them in being representation. Representation is natural. We elect leadership from LOC1, LOC2, LOC3, LOC4, which is mayor, MPs, LOC5 up to president, for purposes of representation. Because if somebody wants to speak to Uganda, they will not come and consult everybody. They will consult the leadership. So if somebody wants to talk with workers, they look for NOTU.
Yes.
They look for the union.
Yes.
That is why all government agencies where workers are meant to be representative, either on the boards, they choose from among the organized workers. Members of parliament representing workers are selected from among the organized workers in the unions. Whether members of the board on NSSF and all other government boards, they choose from among. You can be a professor, you will never represent workers within the government. It is those ones who may not have been very highly educated who represent you. You can talk everything, but government will sit with the unions to determine on matters to do with employment. So it is incumbent upon ourselves to realize that we need that representation. And if you want to be part, then belong. That's what I can say.
Okay, if you want to be a part, then belong. Don't wait for when stuff hits the fan and then you remember, oh, I need representation. It's easier for you when you are already represented. Now, Mr. Mauka, I have John Opendi has a question for you, and he says, my question to Mr. Mauko is, what happens to employees who deliberately refuse their employees to join unions, and how can you help unlock this? Also, he asked that you share your personal number for easy consultations. But let's go with the question. Employers who deliberately refuse their workers from joining unions. I know that there has always been a pushback by some employers when it comes to unionizing since time immemorial. So as far as NOTU is concerned, how do you unlock this?
First is to tell you that there are laws. We have the Labor Unions Act. And we also have the provisions in the National Constitution. The National Constitution provides for the liberty and freedom for workers to join or form unions of their choice. And the labor laws, the Labor Unions Act, also provide under Section 23(1)(d) that employers shall be bound to recognize trade unions to which the trade unions have members, and that is recognition is for purposes of collective bargaining. When an employer recognizes the union, the sole purpose for that recognition is to collectively negotiate the terms and conditions of employment for the workers. But it is a reality that in Uganda we do not have a definite schedule in the law, or we don't have an agreed form or format by which employers do recognize. So recognition is also subject to discussion. So we negotiate with employers to secure recognition, which is the first form of agreement that we enter into with employers, and that agreement sets out the procedures and the modalities under which the union shall operate with that particular organization. The problem has been somehow historical because unions came in as a fight. One of the things trade unions did was actually to fight slavery, because all workers were at one time slaves and all servants. So that notion still lingers in the employer's mind that they should always suppress the people they work with. under the circumstances, we apply the law to enforce recognition and therefore have the workers organized into the unions using the law. There are unions that I would say are weak and they cannot push. But these laws also provide that if the employer does not file a dispute with the registrar of labor unions, who can thereafter issue an order on the employer to recognize. And if it doesn't work out, still you can go to industrial court and you'll get this person compelled to apply the law. But unions need to be received in good faith because it is a matter of negotiation. So the fights sometimes, when you use a lot of force, it takes some time to balance and agree, because at one point in time you must sit on a round table and discuss these matters. So I only want to inform John Opendi that it is just a matter of negotiation, goodwill, technique to ensure that you get the employer to understand you. But where he doesn't, apply the law.
Okay.
There are many people that, there are many employers who have recognized. There are also many who have not recognized. But unions are registered by sector. That is why we are referred to as trade unions. So for each trade or sector, different unions.
So you'll find the nurses, you'll find the doctors, you'll find the journalists.
Exactly. You
in
find
a
the
different
drivers,
union.
you find hotels, food, tourism, supermarkets.
Vendors
Those
have
are
their
different.
unions as well, right?
The market workers have a different union. Plantation workers, all the different sectors, different unions.
Actually, factory workers as well.
Industries.
Now, John also asks, which category of employees are exempted from joining unions?
All persons employed and salaried have the freedom and liberty by constitution to join
a union.
The union.
Okay.
However, the Industrial Relations Charter, Tripartite Industrial Relations Charter, spells out that there are certain people who directly represent the interests of the employer, who may not necessarily have to become members of the union because the union sits with them to negotiate. For example, the managers who have the right to hire and fire.
Like HR managers?
The HR manager, the managing director, and probably the general manager.
Basically the executive.
The top executive of an organization. They represent the interests of the employer, so they may not necessarily become members of the union.
But you see, sometimes I could be like where I am right now, I join a union for journalists. And at some point, I'm at the helm of a media company. Does that negate the fact that I'm still a journalist in as much as now I'm part of the executive?
You can operate as a passive member, but you cannot take leadership in the union because you initiate complaints or you handle complaints by the workers.
Okay.
So if you are a leader of the worker, you cannot sit in two chairs at the same time to do contrary function.
There will be conflict of interest.
Definitely. So if you are that top person in the company, if you choose to exercise your duty and right as a worker, then you become a passive member that does not become a leader of the other side.
Okay. Well, and Mark says thanks to the gentleman. Uganda, the government has failed to balance life of Ugandans' welfare. I think he means workers' welfare. And my question to our brother is, where is the salary guidance for all Ugandans? I'm trying to paraphrase, but I think that's what he means. His question is on salary, because you did also mention that you negotiate the terms and conditions.
Including salaries.
Including salaries. Yes. So please.
You know, one thing is true, as National Organization of Trade Unions and all the affiliate unions within Uganda, we are striving to establish a minimum wage, especially for the workers who will represent in the general. The workers need to have a minimum wage so that we have a starting point.
Yes.
We need a minimum wage which recognizes that this person eats, this person walks or transports him herself.
And their rent is increased.
Yes. The economy keeps changing.
Yes.
We receive economic shocks, all of us, both government employers and workers.
True.
But we are like neglecting the work on the other side to fend for him or herself. So what we are calling on government to do is, one, to establish a minimum wage. It is only for a quack employer who thinks that a minimum wage is bad. You know, we are putting workers to a very big risk. To these Chinese who come here, mint money and take it outside. Take it back to China. And the Chinese employing 500 workers, none of these people is subscribing to NSSF. So as a government, we are not benefiting much from this person. These people are paid a wage that cannot make them even contribute
to
or pay as you earn, because the pay is too low that it does not even mark up to the threshold against which government can charge pay as you earn. I don't know why government has not taken interest to appreciate and comprehend that some of these so-called investors are actually useless to the economy. The profit they make, they take it back. The people that they are employing here are not contributing to the GDP.
So basically they remain in poverty, yet the biggest reason for investment
several times
is to create jobs.
Several times the president has said he wants to have many people join the money economy, the cash economy.
Yes.
We are not going to realize that dream by the president if we don't have a minimum wage that makes this person, each person in employment, be able to contribute to government. Each person in employment be able to contribute to social security. You are all aware how much money we have in social security and how it is helping this economy to develop.
Yes.
So the more people we get into that basket of contributing to the social security system, the more the country will even grow faster. So it is a call that we are making as trade unions that government should establish a minimum wage. Government should consider discussions and involvement of workers at all. Government should also improve on the labor administration by making the Ministry of Labor an independent ministry, and also re-centralize the function of labor from local government to the mother ministry.
Okay.
So that a number of things can be done in such a way that the workers' welfare can improve in this country. As we speak, it is quite wanting.
Okay. And now I have another concern coming through, and this one says, good morning, host and the gentleman. He says, on sensitizing the people, you may not he says, I want to truly inform you that I'm a safety manager, but my team of employees are really handled badly, whereby they are even charged money when there is no wrong on their side, and they're charged about 200,000 that they delay to submit their job card, yet they were not given to them to be filled. It's wrong and it is theft. And he continues to say, what guidance are you giving to guide these workers? Give me the phone number, your phone number. We can find such individuals who are milking workers. And he says, especially finance teams mistreating other employees on projects. The last question he asked is, joining a trade union, is it free of charge? And we have many comments coming through, but time is of the essence. So your response to that will be the closure of our conversation.
Well, all I can say is joining trade unions is free, but trade unions are membership organizations towards which we pay contributions monthly. And by definition, unions are run, managed, and financed by workers themselves. So we pay a monthly subscription to our unions.
Yes.
So it may be free to join, but maintenance of your membership by law requires you to subscribe in accordance with the Employment Act. And the other concern was these specific employers who are cheating workers. I wouldn't wish to put my number because I would be overwhelmed.
Yeah, because
Maybe
there are
I
many
can
concerns and different people are asking for a contact, probably not yours, but one for the organization where they can call and get guidance.
Let me get the number for...
Well,
But what I can say is that whether unionized or not unionized, the unions have liberty. We find liberty in the Employment Act Section 66 to represent anybody who is in employment. So these people can look for us. Our offices are in Namugongo,
yes,
Chaliwajara. The offices for the union which I pretend over is in Wakariga.
yes.
But you can always never fail to find these locations. As I look for the number, I don't know whether the time will allow. I have to check on my phone. I don't cram numbers in the head. It is important that you look out for either NOTU or HTS or the union within your jurisdiction. Come and report this employer. We shall come definitely as NOTU as or the respective union. We shall send them to come and rescue the situation.
Okay.
That's what I can say.
Well, time has unfortunately run out for us, but we've been having a conversation on workers' welfare with Mr. Moses Mauku, who is the General Secretary at the National Organization of Trade Unions. Now, those of you that had concerns and wanted his number, you can look out for the website of NOTU and you'll get the contact information that you may need and also have the questions that you have asked, and some of them that have not been able to repeat here for them to be answered. Good Morning Uganda does continue as we have sports updates with Ruben Mpima Chibirango. Thank you so much, Mr. Mauku.
You're most welcome, Monica.
Well, stick around. The show continues.
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
In a nation hungry for truth, a world where every story matters, there exists a beacon of trust and reliability. For decades, they've been our voice and our window to the world, holding the mirror of our history. With 4 TV stations and 11 radio channels spanning 27 languages, they stand as guardians of information, defenders of truth. With Mascari Heritage Advantage, they uphold every citizen's right to reliable and free information. Their archived stories shaped our past and illuminate our present. Yet now, as new challenges arise and the world evolves, their mission faces its greatest test yet. Be part of our journey and let's navigate the unknown, uncover the untold, and safeguard our future together. Tune into your public broadcaster, for it is the intersection of trust and truth. Because to UBC, your story, and every voice matters. UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, This is Good Morning Uganda.
Ruben Pima, I'm here to give you sport, and I have a lot to talk about today, this morning rather. There is the Uganda Cranes lineup that has been called up for the game against Mozambique. That will be on the 20th. Then, of course, we are talking about the Champions League. That returns on our screens. That will be tonight. Well, I'll start with the Uganda Cranes team that has been summoned to take part of the qualifiers. That's the 2026 World Cup qualifiers in Group G, where Uganda will be hosting Mozambique. Then, of course, another Guinea. Then they will play Mozambique away from home. So, the lineups that have been confirmed by Paul Put. Of course, Paul Put is a Belgian by nationality, 68-year-old, who was appointed on the 2nd of November, 2023. The team that has been called into camp include Wisma Tenga. From Golden Arrow, South Africa, we have Nufian Alyonzi from Defense Forces Ethiopia, and Joel Mutakubwa, that is from Joel Mutakubwa from Bull FC. Then, of course, the defenders, as you show on your screen, the goalkeepers are there, the three of them, I've mentioned them, Watenga, Alyonzi, and Mutakubwa. They have been called up in the provisional lineup to face in the double encounters, that is against Guinea and Mozambique. Then the defenders include Elvis Bomono, that is from St. Marin. We have Gavin Chizito from KCC. Isaac Amleme has also been called up there. Isaac Amleme. We have Bevis Mugabe, Timothy Awani. We have Sibik Toby also being called up by the technical team of the Uganda Cranes. And then we have Aziz Kayondo as defenders. There is Kenneth Semakula. We have Rogers Torach from Vipers. Others are being called up to be part of the World Cup qualifiers that will be happening on the 20th and 21st or 22nd of March. Then, of course, the midfielders include Carl Daucho from Yanga. That is we have Ronald Sechigana from SC Vida. Travis Mutiaba from Zamalek. That is Sports Club. Then we have Alan Okel from Vipers, Abdu Karim Watambara from Vipers, and Enoch Seva